Don't bring that old story into this house today, Raymond. I am not bringing it in, Linda. It has been sitting in this house for 27 years. My sister froze in my kitchen doorway with her hand on her chest. She looked past me toward the hallway, as if my daughter might walk in and hear us. Keep your voice down, she whispered. I laughed, but there was no joy in it. My daughter is getting married in 6 hours, I said, and you are still asking me to keep my voice down. Linda stepped closer. Her eyes were wet already, and that made me angry because she had not even heard the worst part yet. Ray, she said softly, some truths do not heal people, some truths break them. I turned away from her and looked at the white wedding dress hanging on the closet door. My daughter, Grace, had picked it herself. Simple, clean, long sleeves, no glitter, no drama. She said she wanted to look like peace. Peace. That word sat inside my chest like a stone. For 27 years, I had raised that girl with my own 2 hands. I had held her through fever. I had braided her hair badly until she was old enough to tell me I was terrible at it. I had worked double shifts at a factory, cleaned offices at night, and delivered groceries on weekends just to keep food in the house and shoes on her feet. People used to say, "Raymond, you are a strong man." They did not know strength was not something I chose. It was something life forced into my bones. Grace was not born from my body, but she was born from my sacrifice. I was there when she took her first step. I was there when she lost her first tooth. I was there when her mother, Denise, packed one black suitcase and said she needed space, then never came back. And now, on the morning of my daughter's wedding, my sister was standing in my kitchen telling me to stay quiet again. The phone on the table buzzed. Grace's name appeared on the screen. For a moment, neither of us moved. Linda wiped her eyes quickly. "Answer it." I picked it up. "Daddy," Grace said. The sound of her voice softened me at once. That was the power she had over me. One word from her and the world stopped being heavy. "Yes, baby girl." "Are you dressed yet?" I looked down at my old gray undershirt and sweatpants. "Almost," I lied. She laughed. "Daddy." I said almost. That can mean many things. For the first time that morning, Linda smiled a little. Grace went quiet for a second. "Are you okay?" she asked. I looked at the wedding dress again. "I should be asking you that." "I am nervous," she said. "Not about marrying Ethan. I love him. I do know. His parents make me feel like I am being tested every time I breathe." I closed my eyes. I knew that feeling. Ethan's father, Richard Whitmore, had been testing us from the first day we met him. He was the kind of man who entered a room as if he owned the air. Expensive suit, polished shoes, silver watch, fake smile. He called people by the wrong name and never apologized. He shook my hand once, looked around my small living room and said, "Grace certainly learned humility here." I wanted to ask him if he had learned kindness anywhere. But Grace looked happy that day, so I swallowed my pride. That was what fathers did. We swallowed fire so our children could smile. "Listen to me," I told Grace. "Today is your day, not his, not mine, not anybody else. You hear me?" "Yes, Daddy." "If anyone makes you feel small, remember who raised you." She laughed softly. "The man who cried when I left for college." I had dust in my eyes. "Daddy, you cried for 3 hours." It was heavy dust. She laughed again, and my heart almost broke from loving her. Then her voice lowered. "Ethan said his father wants to give a speech today." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Oh." "He said it is a family tradition." I looked at Linda. She was watching me now, very still. "What kind of speech?" I asked. "I don't know." Ethan seemed uncomfortable about it. He said his dad has been acting strange since he found out Mom might come. "Denise." That name moved through the room like cold wind. "Your mother is coming?" I asked. Grace sighed. She texted me last night, said she would try. I pressed my palm against the table. Try. Denise had been trying for 20 years, trying to call, trying to explain, trying to be better, trying to become a mother after I had already done the raising. But weddings had a way of inviting ghosts. Daddy, Grace said, do you hate her? I opened my mouth, but no answer came. Linda turned her face away. No, I said finally. Hate is heavy, I carried enough. Grace was quiet. Then she said, I love you. That was all. 3 simple words, but they carried every sleepless night, every unpaid bill, every meal I skipped so she could eat, every birthday cake I bought from the clearance shelf and decorated myself. I love you too, baby girl. After the call ended, I sat down slowly. Linda pulled out a chair across from me. She deserves to know, I said. No, Linda answered too quickly, not today. Then when, after she has children of her own, after Richard Whitmore destroys her the way he destroyed Denise. Linda flinched. Do not say his name like that. How should I say it? She folded her hands tightly. You have no proof. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. No proof. I have the letter Denise left. I have the hospital record. I have the check he sent her. I have the picture. Linda's face went pale. You still have the picture. I walked to the small wooden cabinet beside the television. The bottom drawer stuck when pulled, like it always did. I yanked it open and removed a brown envelope wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. For 27 years, I had kept that envelope hidden. Not because I was afraid of the truth. Because I was afraid of what the truth would do to Grace. I placed it on the table. Linda did not touch it. I know what is inside, she whispered. No, I said, you know some of it. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first photograph. It was old and slightly bent at the corner. In it, Denise stood outside a hotel in Chicago. She was younger then, with tired eyes and a red scarf around her neck. Beside her stood Richard Whitmore, the same smug man who was about to sit in the front row at my daughter's wedding. Linda covered her mouth. I pulled out the second item, a bank slip from 27 years ago, $10,000, sent from a Whitmore family account to Denise Carter. Then came the letter. I did not need to read it. I knew every word. But still, I unfolded it because pain has a strange way of demanding proof. Ray, I am sorry. I am sorry for what I did, and I am sorry for what I cannot undo. Richard said nobody could ever know. He said if I told the truth, he would ruin all of us. He said Grace would be taken away. I was scared. I was weak. You were the only good thing left in her life. Please raise her better than we deserve. Yes. Tears fell now. I looked at her. You knew was hiding something. I knew she was scared, said. I did not know everything. You told me to let it go. I thought I was protecting Grace. No, I said, you were protecting peace. Looked wounded by that, but I did not take it back. For years, Richard had walked through life untouched. He had built a clean name on dirty secrets. He had watched from far away while I raised the child he wanted erased from his story. Because that was the hidden truth. Grace was not sister. That would have made everything impossible and ugly beyond words. No, Richard was not Grace's father. But he was the man who had destroyed her mother. Years ago, before Grace was born, had worked as a receptionist at one of Richard's hotels. She discovered that Richard and his business partner were using fake charity accounts to hide money. When she threatened to report it, he trapped her. He lied about her. He paid her to disappear. He told people she stole from him. He made sure no decent company would hire her again. Fell apart after that. She met me months later, already carrying wounds she would not name. I loved her anyway. I married her. I gave Grace my name. I became her father before I understood how much darkness stood behind her mother's silence. When Grace was 3 months old, received a letter from Richard's lawyer. It warned her to stay quiet or face criminal charges from the old hotel case. 2 weeks later, she left. She did not leave because Grace cried too much. She did not leave because motherhood was hard. She left because Richard had made her believe her presence would destroy the child. And today, that same man was becoming family through marriage. Stared at the letter. "Does no?" she asked. I shook my head. "I do not think so." "What about Grace?" "No." Whispered, "If this comes out today, it could ruin the wedding." I folded the letter carefully. The truth does not ruin things, lies do. A knock came at the door. Jumped. I put the letter back inside the envelope, but left the envelope on the table. The knock came again, louder. "Mr. Carter," a male voice called. "It is." I looked at. Her face told me she was just as surprised as I was. I opened the door. Stood there in a navy suit already dressed for the wedding. He looked nervous, pale, and younger than his 30 years. He was a good man. I had watched him with Grace. He listened when she spoke. He never tried to own her. He loved her like she was a person, not a prize. That was why I had given my blessing. But now he stood on my porch holding something in his hand. A small white envelope. "Sir," he said, "I am sorry to come without calling." "What is wrong?" He glanced past me then back at me. "My father told me not to come here." That sentence pulled all the air from the doorway. I opened the door wider. "Come in." Stepped inside and looked around like a man entering a place where a bomb might be hidden. He saw the brown envelope on the table. His eyes stopped there. "What do you know?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "My mother cried last night," he said. "I heard her arguing with my dad. She said if he humiliated you today, she would leave him." Gripped the back of a chair. I said nothing. Continued. I asked what she meant. She would not tell me. But this morning I found this in my dad's study. He handed me the white envelope. My name was written on the front. Carter. The handwriting was not Richard. It was. My hands turned cold. I opened it. Inside was a folded note and a small flash drive. The note had only one line. "Ray, if Richard tries to shame you today, play this before he speaks, because Grace deserves the truth." I could hear my own heartbeat. Looked at me with fear in his eyes. "What truth?" he asked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Grace. "Daddy, Richard just told the wedding planner to remove your seat from the front row. He said only real family sits there. What is going on?" I stared at the screen. For a moment, I was no longer in my kitchen. I was back in every small apartment I had rented, every hospital room, every school hallway, every father-daughter dance where Grace stood on my shoes because she was too small to reach. Every night I told her she was loved, even when the world made us feel unwanted. "Only real family," whispered Ray. I picked up the brown envelope with one hand and the flash drive with the other. Then I looked at. "Son," I said quietly, "your father just made the worst mistake of his life." And before anyone could speak, my phone rang again. The caller ID said, "Raymond, please listen before you hang up." Denise's voice sounded smaller than I remembered. For a few seconds I could not speak. I just stood there in my kitchen with Ethan in his wedding suit, Linda crying beside the table, the brown envelope in one hand and the flash drive in the other. The woman who had vanished from our lives was on the phone. The woman Grace had waited for at birthdays. The woman I had defended even when my own heart was breaking. "Why now?" I asked. Denise breathed out shakily. Because Richard is going to do something cruel today. He already did. What happened? He told the wedding planner to remove my seat from the front row, said only real family sits there. There was silence on the other end. Then Denise whispered, "God forgive me." I closed my eyes. Ethan stepped closer, his face tight with confusion. "Is that Grace's mother?" I nodded once. Denise heard him. "Is Ethan there?" "Yes." "Then he needs to hear this too." Ethan looked at me with a fear I understood too well. It was the fear of realizing your family might not be what you thought. "Put it on speaker," Denise said. I placed the phone on the table and tapped the speaker button. Linda sat down slowly. Ethan remained standing, as if sitting would make the truth too real. Denise spoke again, and this time her voice was clearer. "Ethan, your father is not the man you think he is." Ethan swallowed. "What did he do?" "He destroyed my life to protect himself." I watched Ethan's face change. He did not look angry yet. He looked like a man standing at the edge of a bridge, not sure if the road behind him still existed. Denise continued. 27 years ago, I worked at the Whitmore Grand Hotel in Chicago. I was young. I was a receptionist. I was poor, but I was proud. I thought if I worked hard, I would move up. Her voice cracked. Then I found records I was never meant to see. Fake donations, charity money going into private accounts, names of dead people used on hotel documents. Your father and his business partner were stealing money from a children's foundation they used for publicity. Ethan's lips parted, but no words came. Linda whispered, "Lord." "I was stupid enough to tell Richard I knew," Denise said. "I thought he would be scared. Instead, he smiled at me. He said nobody would believe a receptionist over a Whitmore." I leaned against the counter because my legs felt heavy. That was the part Denise had never told me fully. She had written some of it in the letter, but hearing it from her own mouth was different. It made the past breathe again. "He accused me of stealing from the hotel," she said. "He had fake documents prepared. He paid a security guard to lie. He told me if I opened my mouth, I would go to prison. Then he gave me $10,000 and told me to disappear." Ethan's eyes turned red. "My father did that." "Yes," Denise said. "And when I met Raymond, I tried to start over. I tried to be a wife. I tried to be a mother. But Richard found me again after Grace was born. He said if I told Raymond the truth, he would reopen the case and make sure I lost everything. He said Grace would grow up knowing her mother was a criminal." Her voice broke completely. "So I left." The room went quiet. For years, I had imagined that moment in different ways. I imagined Denise leaving because she did not love us. I imagined her tired of bills and baby cries. I imagined her looking at me and seeing a small man with small pockets and a small future. But the truth was worse. She had left because fear had eaten her alive. I picked up the flash drive. "What is on this?" I asked. "My confession," Denise said. "And more, I kept copies of everything, the bank transfer, the records, the hotel charity files, names, dates, Richard's voice on a recording from the day he threatened me." Ethan stepped back like the floor had moved under him. "You recorded him?" "Yes, I was scared, but I was not foolish." I stared at the flash drive. For 27 years, Richard Whitmore had lived clean while Denise lived stained. He became respected. She became a warning. He raised his children in wealth. I raised Grace in struggle. And now he wanted to remove me from the front row. Only real family. The words burned through me again. Denise spoke softly. "Ray, I should have given it to you years ago." "Yes," I said. My answer was simple, but it carried all my pain. "I know," she whispered. "I was ashamed." Grace texted again. "Daddy, please call me. Ethan is not answering either. Everyone is acting strange." Ethan pulled out his phone and looked at it. His hands shook. "I need to call her," he said. "No," I said. He looked at me, hurt and confused. I softened my voice. "Not yet, not until we know what your father is planning." Ethan looked toward the door. "He told me this morning that marriage is about protecting the family name." Denise gave a bitter laugh from the phone. "That sounds like Richard." "He said Grace needed to understand her place," Ethan continued. "I thought he meant because our families are different. I told him he was wrong. Then he said—" Ethan stopped. "What did he say?" I asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "He said some people spend their whole lives pretending to be fathers because they have nothing else to be proud of." Linda gasped. I did not move. I had been insulted before. I had been looked down on by men with cleaner shoes and softer hands. I had been called poor, stubborn, simple, uneducated. None of that ever touched me deeply. But pretending to be a father, that one found bone. I looked at Ethan. "Your father said that?" "Yes, sir." The respectful way Ethan said "sir" made it hurt more. He was not like Richard. That was the tragedy. A good son can still come from a rotten tree. Denise said, "Raymond, I am coming to the wedding." "No." "Ray." "No," I repeated. "You do not get to enter like a storm and break Grace without warning." "I am her mother." I leaned close to the phone. "And I am her father." I stayed. "Do not forget that." Silence. Then Denise said, "I have never forgotten it." Her voice was soft, and for one moment I heard the woman I once loved. Not the ghost, not the wound, the woman. But I could not afford softness now. Ethan wiped his face with his sleeve. "What do we do?" he asked. I looked at the clock. We had less than 4 hours before the ceremony. "We go to the venue," I said. "We act normal until we know what he wants." Linda stood. "Raymond, please be careful." I looked at her. I have been careful for 27 years. On the drive to the hotel ballroom, nobody said much. Ethan sat beside me in the passenger seat, staring at the flash drive like it was a loaded weapon. Linda sat in the back with the brown envelope on her lap. The city moved around us like it did not know my life was splitting open. People walked dogs. A man sold flowers near the corner. 2 teenagers laughed at a bus stop. The world was rude like that. It kept moving even when your chest was full of thunder. When we reached the Whitmore Grand Ballroom, I almost laughed. Of course, Richard had chosen one of his family properties. Tall glass doors, gold handles, white roses everywhere. A fountain in front that looked more expensive than every car I had ever owned. Grace had wanted a small garden wedding. Richard had called that sweet but unsuitable. Inside, staff were moving fast. Florists adjusted white flowers. Waiters polished glasses. The sound crew tested microphones. The room was beautiful in that cold, rich way where everything looked perfect but nothing felt warm. Then I saw Grace. She stood near the stage in her robe, hair half pinned, holding her phone. When she saw me, her face broke with relief. "Daddy!" She ran to me. I held her tight. For 1 second all my anger left. She smelled like vanilla lotion and hairspray. My little girl, my brave girl, my almost married girl. "What is happening?" she whispered into my chest. "Why did Mr. Whitmore move your seat?" I pulled back and touched her cheek. "Not today, baby." Her eyes narrowed. "Daddy, do not do that." "Do what?" "Protect me by hiding things." Those words hit me harder than I expected. Behind her, Ethan stood frozen. He looked at Grace like he wanted to tell her everything and feared it would shatter her. Before anyone could speak, Richard Whitmore appeared from the side hallway. He wore a black tuxedo with a white pocket square. His hair was silver and perfectly combed. His smile came first, then his eyes. The smile said welcome. The eyes said warning. "Raymond," he said warmly, as if he had not just removed me from the front row. You made it. I smiled back. I raised the bride. I figured I should attend. Grace looked between us. Richard's smile tightened. Of course, we simply had to make some adjustments to seating. The front row is reserved for immediate family and honored guests. I heard Ethan inhale sharply. Grace stepped forward. My father is immediate family. Richard looked at her gently, as if correcting a child. Grace today is bigger than emotion. There are traditions to respect. I saw the anger rise in her face. No tradition puts my father behind people I barely know. Richard's eyes flicked to me. There it was. The first crack. He had not expected Grace to stand up for me in public. Men like Richard always thought love could be rearranged like chairs. I kept my voice calm. It is only a chair, Richard. He stepped closer. Good, then you will not mind sitting where we placed you. Grace said, I mind. Grace, Ethan said softly. She turned to him. Did you know? Ethan looked down. That was enough. Her face changed. You knew. I found out this morning that something was wrong. What something? Richard laughed lightly. This is wedding stress. Everyone breathe. Grace, your makeup artist, is waiting. But Grace did not move. What something, Ethan? Ethan looked at me. I shook my head slightly. Not here. Not like this. Richard noticed the look between us. His smile faded for half a second, then returned sharper. Raymond, he said, may I speak to you privately? No, Grace said. Richard ignored her. I think it would be best. I looked at him, then at Grace. It is fine, I said. It is not fine, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. Trust me. Richard led me into a small side room used for storage. There were boxes of candles, extra chairs, and a long mirror against the wall. The moment the door closed, his smile disappeared. You should leave, he said. I almost laughed. Good morning to you too. I am serious. So am I. His eyes hardened. You do not belong here. This wedding connects two respected families. Grace is a sweet girl, but let us not pretend she came from anything worth celebrating. My hands curled at my sides. He continued, calm and poisonous. I allowed this marriage because Ethan is stubborn and because Grace is presentable. But I will not let you stand in front of my guests and turn this into some poor man's victory parade. I looked at him in the mirror. Is that what scares you, that people might see me? What scares me, he said, stepping closer, is unnecessary embarrassment. For who? For everyone. No, Richard, for you. His face twitched. I lowered my voice. You know, when you removed my seat, I thought maybe you were just cruel, but now I see it. You are afraid. He smiled, but his throat moved. Afraid of a factory worker. I nodded, yes. He leaned closer. Listen carefully. If you cause trouble today, I will make sure Grace regrets it. Ethan has a trust, a future, a family name. Doors can close very quickly. There it was again. The threat. Different year, same man. I felt something inside me go quiet. Not weak quiet. Dangerous quiet. You still think you can scare people into silence, I said. Richard's eyes narrowed. Before he could answer, the door opened. Ethan stood there with Grace behind him. But Grace was not looking at me. She was looking at Richard. Her face was pale. In her hand was the brown envelope. Linda stood behind her, crying. My heart dropped. Grace looked at me, and her voice came out shaking. Daddy, she said, why is there a picture of my mother with him? Richard turned slowly. For the first time since I had known him, all the blood drained from his face. Grace lifted the old photograph higher. And why, she whispered, Does this letter say he destroyed her life? Tell me the truth." Grace's voice was not loud, but it stopped every sound in that room. Richard stood near the long mirror, stiff and pale like a man who had just seen his own funeral. Stood beside Grace, looking from his father to the old photograph in her hand. Was behind them, tears running down her face. I looked at my daughter, and for the first time that day, I did not see the little girl who used to run into my arms after school. I saw a woman who deserved the truth. "Grace," I said gently, "come with me." "No," she said, "not another room, not another secret, not another person telling me it is not the right time. I am standing in my wedding dress, about to marry into this family, and I just found out everyone knows something except me." Stepped closer. "Grace, I did not know until this morning." She turned to him. "But you knew before I did." That hurt him. I saw it land. "I was trying to protect you," he said. Grace laughed once, but it sounded broken. "That is what everybody says before they break your heart." Richard cleared his throat. "This is old nonsense," he said. "A bitter woman's story and a poor man's misunderstanding." I stepped in front of him. "Say one more word about like that, and I promise you, the ballroom will hear everything before the ceremony even starts." Richard's eyes burned with anger, but behind it was fear. Grace looked at me. "Daddy, what happened?" I took the letter from her shaking hand. I wanted to make it painless. I wanted to turn truth into something soft, but truth is not always soft. Sometimes truth is a knife, and love is holding someone while it cuts. "Your mother worked for Richard before you were born," I said. "She found out he was stealing money through charity accounts connected to his hotel business. Money that was supposed to help children. When she threatened to report it, he accused her of stealing, paid people to lie, and forced her to disappear." Grace covered her mouth. I continued, because stopping would only make it worse. "When your mother met me, she was already scared. I loved her. I married her. I raised you as my daughter because you were my daughter from the moment I held you. But after you were born, Richard found her again. He threatened to reopen the false case against her. He made her believe that if she stayed, you would grow up with a mother in prison and a family destroyed by shame." Grace's eyes filled. "So she left." I nodded slowly. "She left because she was afraid. She left because she thought leaving would protect you. It was wrong. It hurt us. It hurt you most of all, but that is the truth." Grace looked at Richard. "You did that." Richard's face hardened. He adjusted his cufflinks, trying to return to the man he had been 5 minutes earlier. "Your mother was unstable. She misunderstood business matters far above her level." "Look disgusted, Dad." Richard snapped at him. "Be quiet." Straightened. "No, I have been quiet for too long." Richard turned on him. "You are about to throw away your future for these people." Grace flinched at these people. Noticed. His face changed. "These people," he repeated. "You mean the woman I love. You mean the man who raised her better than you raised me." Richard lifted his hand, but did not move back. Then the door opened again. Stood there. She wore a simple blue dress, not wedding clothes, not attention-seeking, just clean and quiet. Her hair had streaks of gray. Her eyes looked tired but steady. Grace whispered, "Mom." Face crumpled. "My baby." Grace did not run to her. She did not smile. She just stood there shaking. "Why did you never come back?" Grace asked. Pressed her hand to her chest. "Because I believed the lie that my presence would ruin your life. Then, after years passed, shame became another prison. Every birthday I missed made it harder to return. Every photo sent through made me proud and ashamed at the same time. I watched you grow from far away like a coward." Grace cried then silently. I wanted to hold her, but I stayed where I was. This pain belonged to her. Looked at me. Kept you alive in every way that mattered. I sent money sometimes through, but money is not parenting. He was there. He was the father. I was the one who failed you. Grace looked at. You knew. Sobbed. I knew your mother was scared. I helped her send money twice. I thought silence was protecting you. I was wrong. Grace wiped her cheeks. So everyone chose silence for me. Nobody answered. Because she was right. Then a voice sounded from the hallway. Mister, the guests are seated. We are ready for the family entrance. Richard looked toward the door like a drowning man seeing land. This ends now, he said. All of you will gather yourselves, will leave, will sit where he was placed. Grace will walk down the aisle and we will never discuss this again. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Grace laughed. It was soft, stunned, and full of pain. You really think you are still in control? Richard stepped toward her. Young lady, you have no idea what kind of world you are entering. She lifted her chin. Maybe I just found out what kind of world I almost entered. Took her hand. Grace, I love you, but if you cannot marry me today, I will understand. She looked at him for a long time. I love you too, she said, but I will not marry into a lie. Richard's face twisted. You foolish boy, he said too. If you walk away from this family, you walk away from everything. Nodded slowly. Then I will finally own something real. That sentence broke something in Richard. His mask disappeared. You ungrateful little fool. I stepped between them. Enough. Richard turned to me with hatred in his eyes. You think you won. You raised another man's problem and called it purpose. You came here in a cheap suit thinking sacrifice makes you equal to me. The door behind us had not closed fully. People in the hallway heard. A planner froze. 2 bridesmaids stared. A waiter stopped with a tray in his hands. Richard saw them and smiled, suddenly loud enough for more people to hear. You want respect? Fine. Let everyone know the truth. You are not her real father. You are just the man who got left behind. Grace gasped. Said, Dad, stop. But Richard was not done. He reached for a glass of water on the small table near the mirror. Before anyone could stop him, he threw it in my face. Cold water ran down my forehead, into my eyes, down my collar. The hallway went silent. Then the silence spread. Guests near the ballroom entrance turned. More heads followed. Someone whispered. Someone else stood. The sound of 800 people slowly realizing something terrible had happened is a sound I will never forget. Richard stood there with his empty glass, breathing hard. For 1 second I was back in every hard year of my life. The nights I worked until my hands bled. The mornings I packed Grace's lunch with tired fingers. The school plays where I clapped louder than anyone because her mother's seat was empty. The hospital bills, the old shoes, the prayers whispered beside her bed. I wiped my face with my handkerchief. Then I stood straight. Do you really know who you just insulted? I asked. Richard's smug smile vanished. I turned toward the ballroom doors. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear, I apologize for the delay. But before any vows are spoken in this room, the truth needs to stand where lies have been sitting. Richard grabbed my arm. Do not. I looked down at his hand until he let go. Denise stepped forward and handed the flash drive to the sound technician, who had been watching from beside the stage. Play the file named Grace, she said. The technician looked at Grace. Grace nodded. Richard shouted, I forbid this. Ethan answered, You do not forbid truth. The large screen behind the flowers flickered. Denise's recorded confession appeared first. Her voice filled the ballroom, trembling but clear. She explained the hotel records, the fake charity accounts, the false accusation, the payment, the threats, and why she left. Then came Richard's own voice from 27 years earlier. Nobody moved. His voice was younger, but the cruelty was the same. Denise, you are nothing. If you speak, I will bury you. I will say you stole from the foundation. I will make sure no one hires you again. Take the money and disappear. A sound moved through the guests: shock, anger, disgust. On the screen came copies of bank transfers, documents, names, dates, and Richard's signature on files he had denied for decades. By the time the recording ended, Richard looked 20 years older. His wife Margaret stood from the front row. She had been quiet all morning, elegant and distant. Now she removed her wedding ring and placed it on the chair. "I asked you last night," she said, her voice breaking. "You lied to me again." Richard whispered, "Margaret." "No," she said. "You destroyed that woman. You threatened this man. You tried to shame the father of the bride in front of everyone. I am done protecting your name." Then she walked out. That was the first consequence. The second came from the mayor, who had been invited as Richard's honored guest. He stood slowly, face tight. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, "our city's foundation board will review every partnership connected to your company immediately." The third came from Ethan. He faced his father in front of all those guests. "I resign from Whitmore Holdings," he said. "I will not build my life on stolen respect." Richard looked around, desperate now. "Grace," he said, suddenly softer, "this is your wedding. Do not let them ruin it." Grace stepped forward, still in her white dress, tears on her face but strength in her eyes. "You ruined it when you thought my father was someone you could humiliate." Then she turned to me. "Daddy, I am sorry." I shook my head. "You have nothing to be sorry for." She walked into my arms. The whole ballroom watched me hold the child I had raised. Not a borrowed child. Not a leftover child. My child. After a long moment, Grace faced the guests. "There will be no wedding today," she said. A few people gasped. She held Ethan's hand. "At least not like this. I still love Ethan. But we will not begin our marriage inside a performance. Today, we are choosing truth over image." Ethan nodded beside her. "We will marry when our hearts are ready, not when my father's guest list demands it." Somebody started clapping. Then another. Then the sound grew until the whole room was standing. Not for revenge. For courage. For truth. For the man with water still drying on his collar, who had spent 27 years being called less than he was. Later, Richard was investigated. The old charity records reopened more doors than anyone expected. His company lost contracts. His name came down from buildings. Some people who had praised him for years pretended they never liked him. That is how the world often treats fallen, powerful men. Denise gave a full statement and accepted her own blame too. She did not ask Grace to forgive her quickly. She only asked for the chance to show up, one day at a time. Grace did not call her mom again immediately, but she did call her Denise. Then months later she called her for coffee. Healing did not happen like a movie. It came slowly, with awkward silence, tears, and small, honest steps. Ethan built a smaller life, but a cleaner one. He found work outside his father's company. He and Grace went to counseling, not because their love was weak, but because they wanted their future to stand on truth. 1 year later, they married in a small garden behind our church. No gold chairs. No 800 guests. No powerful man deciding who belonged. Just sunlight, flowers, family, and peace. Before I walked Grace down the aisle, she fixed my tie and smiled. "Front row is only for real family," she said. I laughed, then I should sit twice. She cried and laughed at the same time. When we reached the end of the aisle, Ethan hugged me first. "Thank you for raising her," he whispered. I looked at him and said, "Thank you for loving her without trying to own her." That day no one threw water, no one gave threats, no one hid behind a family name. And when Grace said her vows, she looked at me for 1 second before looking at Ethan. That was enough. If this story touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe, because some truths deserve to be heard by people who still believe love is stronger than shame. In the end, the hidden truth was simple. Richard had lied to protect his power. Denise had run because fear and shame controlled her. Linda had stayed silent because she thought peace was safer than honesty. I had hidden the truth because I wanted to protect Grace from pain. But silence protected the wrong people. Revenge became necessary because Richard did not just hide his sin. He tried to use his power to humiliate the innocent. He wanted me removed from the front row, erased from the story, and broken in front of my daughter. So the revenge was not violence. It was truth. The truth took his mask. The truth gave Denise her voice. The truth gave Ethan his freedom. And the truth reminded Grace that family is not always the person with the biggest name, the richest table, or the loudest claim. Sometimes family is the tired man who stays, the man who works, the man who shows up, the man who gets water thrown in his face and still stands tall. Because he knows one thing no rich man can buy. Love that survives sacrifice does not need permission to be real.